Okay, so, an interesting observation that you can make in life is that, there's people that know a lot about certain things, and then there's people that, with respect to those things, do not know very much, if anything. But, one of the challenges that we have is that, people that are more intelligent and wise recognize the phenomenon of that. They are absolutely able to account for what they don't know, which means that, like, when it comes to cancer and, medicine and philosophy, stuff like that, my buddy, Dr. Poku, it would be the go-to for that. I know a lot about it, but he knows so much more about it that he is an authority. And so clearly I would kind of subordinate my understanding and be open to whatever he had to tell me. Likewise, if he got a lifter tick or had some noise in his Honda Accord or whatever, he would call me and I would give him advice because he's aware that he doesn't understand it. You see, one of the problems is that, I encounter people at this level here that don't know things, but they also don't know that they don't know them. And so they're totally unable to recognize other people that know them. And so we have a whole society like that they don't know anything about modern medicine, viruses, vaccines. They know nothing, zero. But at the same time, the ignorance is so deep and profound that they do not understand that there are people that know more than them. And so there's people out here that think that they're doing research. There's people out here that are reading blogs, they're going online, they're doing Google searches, and they think that they're educating themselves. You hear that all the time. Well, I just want to educate myself before I make a decision. Unfortunately, the educating yourself that would qualify those decisions would likely require 4 years of undergraduate studies and at least 2 or 3, post-grad, if not a medical degree, PhD. And the one thing that people always, bitch about is, well, doctor said this, doctor said that. In the world of science and medicine, there are a lot of brilliant doctors, but doctors are more along the lines of nurses. They are trained to essentially be technicians for the human body, and diagnosing things and treating things. They even have like desk references and manuals that they refer to assist them in this process. And they have a lot of education, but doctors, they're not at the forefront of science and medicine. They are trained by science and medicine and guided by the best information available at the time of their training, and it requires constant updating. But the people that are really at the forefront are the PhD scientists and the researchers that are pioneering and creating new knowledge. That would be like my friend Dr. Poku. Like, he is somebody that is light years ahead of a doctor. Like, he's a researcher that is inventing molecules. Like, he's doing things of an order of complexity that there's very, very few people in the world that understand the way he does it, let alone can do it themselves. And he's somebody that the top researchers, the top medical schools, the top research facilities, like the Johns Hopkins, all of those have to call him. In fact, his knowledge on the matter is self-generative, and where he works at the City of Hope, it's his licensing that authorizes the type of medicine that they can do simply based on his presence. And his level of expertise is such that it's actually a federal crime and a state crime for him to have any form of oversight, meaning that there cannot be anybody managing him, reviewing or approving or declining his work or research. And the only person he's allowed to answer to is actually just the CEO, but basically on an informational basis. But because of his level of authority, he's the final decision maker as it comes to anything pertaining to nuclear medicine at the City of Hope. And there's no way around it. And it's because people like him create knowledge. They create the framework, the conceptual levels of understanding that become part of the thought process at the very tip of science. And so when you're looking at these books, when you're looking at biology books that thick, physiology books that thick, regular basic chemistry books, then you got organic chemistry and biochemistry, biostatistical analysis, physiology 1, 2, advanced physiology, exercise physiology 1, 2, biomechanics, I mean, just that we're just talking undergraduate stuff. And so, the vast majority of people are ignorant to a point where they're ignorant to their ignorance, meaning that they don't know shit, but they don't know that they don't know shit, and they cannot articulate who knows shit. I have people even in the car business that are doing rebuilds and they don't know how to calculate the displacement of an engine or read a cam card. They don't know basic geometry. They can't calculate the volume of a cylinder. They can't define stroke. Couldn't tell you what the stroke of the engine they're rebuilding is. Or they could tell you, but they wouldn't know what it means. They could tell you the cam they picked, but they don't know what those numbers are. And until confronted by that lack of knowledge, they actually will think they're an expert. And so I'm going to tell you that the majority of people out here that people used to imagine being competition for me when they're looking for their cam swap, that the guys that keep bending push rods and valves, they can learn how to do a cam swap, but they do not understand it. They do not actually know anything about the dynamics of power, like even on a basic level, that, they can't do that. And they'll never advance. They'll always serve the same market because their knowledge does not grow, because they do not actually acknowledge that they don't understand things. In fact, they're just threatened by people that know more than them, and they conceal their ignorance by being cocky, arrogant, or bravado. And the people out here saying I'm the LS Jesus, or whatever the case may be, you say those kind of things because on some level you're aware that you've peaked, that this is it, and there's no growth, there's no moving forward, but you're comfortable. It doesn't fucking matter if you're making money. There is a market for everybody. There's people that will not pay for an expert. There are people that will go to Mexico for a fucking boob job. There are people that will buy their pharmaceutical stuff online from India. Is that right or wrong? No. There's people that don't want to pay $1,500 or $2,000 or $2,500 for a cam swap. They'll go with the $800 cam swap because it's cheaper, but because they don't know better either. And so they do not have the ability to distinguish, who knows what. And so they can't tell the difference between an aerospace engineer and a Jiffy Lube technician. They can't. And so the challenge that you have in life is that you will encounter people that don't know what you know, and they don't know that you know it because they don't know enough about what you know to even qualify your knowledge. And if you end up in league with people like that, they're only going to reduce your effectiveness and energy. They're not going to align with the things that you're doing because they don't understand them. They can't do them themselves. They may be threatened by it, and it's new. And so, like, if you're trying to apply yourself in an environment where you're unrecognized, and you're not recognized as being unrecognized, meaning like you could be toiling with your identity there, and it makes no difference because you're invisible in certain regards to capacities you have that are not easily identifiable by people that don't have the same capacities. Yet there are people that are ignorant enough to not acknowledge people that have more capacity out of jealousy or fear or just plain low intelligence or whatever the case may be, just a lack of insight. And so while I can share a fruitful relationship with people that I recognize as experts in areas where I am less of an expert, like welding, if I could just surrender and let somebody TIG weld, I can create designs and they can help fulfill and make kits. Computer-aided design. Could I train myself to do that? Absolutely, there's no doubt. I can learn how to do that and master it. But in the time it took me to do that, you know, a year later, I might have created one thing. Whereas 10 or 20 people that are fluent in that, they can lean on me for my experience and creativity to deliver parts that are winners. And they don't have to worry about that. They're going to get that. They're going to get the marketing. They're going to get the sales are going to happen. You know, all the necessary other ingredients to make the business function will be up to me. And so if they do that real well and I do my thing real well and the machinist at the aerospace place just kills it with his team, you know, we have something. And I don't need to know everything. So I don't need to know everything about running a 5-axis machine. But I need to understand that this man does. And so I don't need friction by trying to oppose him, deny him, reject his ideas. If he's telling me something pertaining to that department, then I listen attentively and I grant that power. And so when you're in situations where people do not surrender power to you on the basis of your expertise or what you can do to contribute, you're in a lose-lose scenario because you're going to be unable to function well. You're going to be tripping over people. You're going to be sabotaged and opposed and denied and judged, evaluated, critiqued, criticized, because people have to try to put you into what they do understand. And so their framework for evaluating you is extremely limited. And so the things that they're looking at in terms of the totality of what you bring to the table is only within what they could articulate your role to be. And so, you know, if you're really good at this and this isn't, you know, and so you create, you know, a real conundrum. But for people starting at the bottom that have gifts, talents, attributes, aptitudes, and they want to advance, you're going to necessarily deal with that because the people that are higher functioning are higher up the ladder socially, unfortunately. They're higher, they're making more money, they're running more successful businesses because they do that easily. And so a lot of the things are easy. You know, organization is easy. Organization is the easiest thing. Organization makes life fucking easy. And the people that oppose organization, the people that fight to just do things their way, the people that are stuck for 20 years operating in the same thing that isn't current, that isn't up to date, very difficult. You know, by default, that's going to struggle. And, you know, you could go in there and try to be a change agent. You can do whatever you want, but it's never going to work out. It's not. Because they're not going to recognize it. Because the reality is if somebody recognizes the simplicity of these simple, effective policies and ideas, they would have already done it. But they don't want to do it. And so you leave it alone, you know. And so for me, I'm never ever going to go into anything and try to change it or shake it up or make it better. Like, I've wasted like my entire lifetime doing that for different businesses and individuals, and it's always blown up in my face. And it's not the fault of people. It's my own responsibility for putting my nose in things that are not my fucking business and trying to advance a role based on my capabilities that really does not align with someone's commitment. Meaning that they were not trying to do that. They were not striving for anything. They did not have an agenda or a plan that included any of those things prior to your arrival. And so it's misguided to expect that that would be something that you can change. And so that's been the sticking point of my life, is that I get very committed and dedicated in efforts that have no potential to be fulfilled. And that would keep me in sort of a negative state with respect to myself, full of doubt, full of fear that I would adopt from other people because I'd keep getting no's and doors slammed in my face, or these efforts I would put forth would get canceled, or somebody wouldn't fulfill their end of the deal and it didn't work out, you know, or somebody can't simply make the necessary adjustments or won't do it just because you're asking them to. And so that kind of stuff, you know, is never going to happen again for me. And that's why I got to be the CEO. and run this shit.